I know that I've got a few people that couldn't make it today, so I hope it's okay if we can record our session here. I'm just trying to see if we've got any more participants coming in, because I know we have a few that are coming. All right. So Dave, I don't want to hold you up too much. So what was the driving force behind Publisher Rocket?
Yeah, well, back in the day when I was writing my own books, I understood that it's really important for authors to really understand the market. Publishing companies for years have not just been blindly writing any book or sending any book, but they've understood exactly what the market wants, and they've been using that key information to give themselves a very strong competitive advantage. We as self-published authors way back when, before Rocket, really didn't have much that we could go off of. We would just think of like the book that we want, or we would kind of, go off of what people would say. We had no idea if books were making money or if a certain author was actually doing what they were doing. And so I started to kind of approach Amazon and look at it as a plethora of marketing knowledge. And I started designing my own Excel sheets and, just all these formulas that were helping me to figure these things out. And as I was starting to teach people how to do that, let's face it, authors, that Excel sheets and numbers is, it's not our thing.
No,
you tell an
not.
author, hey, spend a whole bunch of time and hours collecting all this information and doing X, Y, and Z, and then, put this cell there. It was like pulling teeth. So that's when I got together a programming team and helped to develop Rocket into what it is today. And since we launched it almost 6 years ago or so, it's just this constant thing where we've always been adding to it, adding new features and improving it. Pretty soon we'll have like historical category data and a whole bunch more. But the point though is that Rocket will now gives authors the ability to know what it is that publishing companies have known, to better understand a lot more about what's happening in the market, helping them to choose the right keywords and categories so that they give their book the best chance of getting in front of new readers on Amazon, instead of just who your friends are, who you're connected to, who's on your email, but to be discovered.
Okay, so what would be, now I'm fairly used to the program. I love the program. I'll just say that up front because it is so handy for me. It cuts out on the time that I spend doing market research by huge. So what would be, for a beginner, what would be the first step to understanding the program, and where would be a good place to start?
Yeah, well, publisherrocket.com/tutorials. We keep those videos up to date. I just redid all of them to reflect the new Audible feature that we added. So now you can actually look up Audible, see Audible book sales, and things like that. And I would definitely recommend checking out those videos. We give a lot of key tips, answer a lot of questions people have, like what makes a good keyword or not. We have, the competition scores and exactly what those mean, if I should go that route or not. You'll find all that there. We also have a full free video course on Amazon ads, so that way authors understand how to do advertisement and can use the ads feature as well. So I'd recommend starting there. That would be a wonderful spot that would give you an understanding of each of the features and how to use them.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dave, just to support that, I bought Rocket about 5 months ago, and your online training materials and the blogs and that, you're one of the few newsletters I actually open all the time and look at your blogs and that. The online resources are tremendous.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That really means a lot. It's, creating a software that's either confusing or hard or difficult and not giving the training or having the support team ready. It's just, I think that's where a lot of companies fail. And I've wanted to make sure that we have the right training material and that my support team members are authors that understand this. They're not people I found that have a copy and paste aspect. Matter of fact, I don't even allow any copying and pasting in our support team because I want people to have real answers. So that means a lot to hear that you've experienced that.
Yeah.
Sweet. So if I had a question or a concern or something isn't working the way that I should or I would expect it to, then I can certainly reach out and I wouldn't have an issue getting um, honest and critical feedback on that issue. Say, for example, God forbid, something it crashed, my system crashed and I couldn't access it or something like that. I would be able to get that honest and critical feedback, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, generally speaking, you expect it in less than 6 hours. They also work through the weekend as well. The only times that we have off is Christmas and a couple of others, but we have people who support each other as they go. If, for example, you have sent in a support ticket and say it's been longer than 12 hours since you've seen the response, my recommendation is check your spam, because we probably responded there. And the email went straight to spam, so it might have been missed there. But we have a system of going back and checking and verifying that every support ticket that came in was responded to. And I also do quality control check to verify that we really went above and beyond to provide value, and that nothing falls through the cracks.
Awesome. So no, I know we do have some people that are that have other programs of yours. I know I'm looking at Atticus myself. Is there going to be a point where the programs can kind of communicate? So if I'm in Publisher Rocket and I'm looking at doing things in Atticus, is that going to possibly be in the future an update that would allow us to communicate between the two programs, or is it strictly just going to stay with just Publisher Rocket and keep them separate?
Yeah, so Atticus's purpose is to help authors to write, collaborate, edit, and format all within one software. And so the creation of the book itself is really what Atticus does. With regards to Rocket is about marketing the book. You can definitely use Rocket to figure out if your book idea is a good idea. So you can look at keywords and everything as in hey, I'm thinking about writing this section. What are the chances that Amazon has a market for this? Say, for example, you're like air fryers in an RV. Like I know a lot of people that really think air fryers in an RV are great. Well, you could put it into Rocket and see, honestly, if people are actually searching for it. A great way that I used it a long time ago was that, and this was a long time ago, Evernote was really hot in the book market. Like a lot of people were searching for books on how to use Evernote. And I could either write another book on Evernote and hope I can outmarket, or hope that I write a better book than everybody else. But back then I wasn't like a phenomenal book marketer, and I sure as heck were not as good of a writer as I am today. So my chances of winning in that market would have been slim to none. But I started doing research and I found out that there were a lot of people at that time that were typing in Evernote for authors, Evernote for students, Evernote for teachers. And while it wasn't a lot, it's just that there were no other books that were tailored to that market. And so instead of me writing a book on just Evernote and fighting with everybody else, I would have been able to write a book for that particular market. And let's face it, if you type in Evernote for students and you see, and there's a book that's literally called Evernote for students, and it's the only one, you probably got that sale no matter what, because you are actually writing it for them. And so I say that you could use Publisher Rocket to test your ideas, as well as kind of augment them or tweak them to fit an existing market on Amazon. But generally speaking, most people use Rocket when it comes time to choose their categories, to choose their keywords, and to set up their advertisement. So the two systems with Atticus is like making your book, and then with Rocket is selling your book. There wouldn't be too much that I could develop to make the two talk together in order to kind of benefit while a writer is writing. Yeah. But, it's definitely something where maybe in the future, because I'm always adding features to Rocket and I'm always looking for ways. Although sometimes I also create my own like free tools as well. And I find ways to put that in there. For some of you guys who don't know, on Kindlepreneur, we created the QR code generator. And so you can build a QR code for free. You don't even have to put in an email address. So you can build QR codes that will point to your like ebook or wherever you want to send somebody. And so we inserted that software into Atticus so that you can build and put QR codes inside your book. so that, if somebody's reading a book and you want them to sign up for your email list, you can just have them scan that QR code. It will send them straight to the page. By the way, I think Alexa, we're getting some of the.
Am I loud?
I think it's the background. There we go. You're good now.
Thank
awesome.
you.
So the other thing too is I'm actually about to come out with this free tool. Like we're just finishing up the tests, and it's funny is I'll be the first to tell you, and I think this is kind of a good lesson for everybody, is I suck at social media. Like it's just not my jam. And I say that honestly, like I use social media, like I only use Facebook just so I can make sure my muzzy knows what I'm up to, or that the family can see the pictures of the kids. I've never been a good social media marketer. And I say this because it's just one thing to say to authors is you don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to be a master of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that's really stopped me from getting into social media marketing for books is I suck at hashtags. Like I don't get them. Like when I go to like post on Twitter or something like that, or Instagram or TikTok, like I all of a sudden like brain fog, and I'm like, which hashtag do I use? Hashtag dad life? I don't know. And so we literally just built this hashtag generator that's coming out very soon. That's free. And what you can do is that you choose which platform it is. So say it's Twitter. And it immediately will say, okay, what part in your writing are you? Are you currently writing? Did you just publish? Are you marketing? Is it a specific genre? And when you click that, it will then produce all the best hashtags that have the most reach that fit that moment in your writing. And you can select the ones you want. And it will calculate like how many you're allowed to have for that platform. And then just click copy. And then you can just paste it right into your social media.
Awesome.
And so I think later I'll develop it as a free app as well, because a lot of people do it on their phone. And so it's weird to go to my website and then go to the app on the phone. So we're going to be working on that as well. But all that to say is that that's also a technology that we'll put into Atticus as well. So to answer your question, I don't think I can come up with a way for Rocket and Atticus to talk to each other just because they're two very different points. But I'm constantly finding all these little neat things to add to Atticus to make the whole book writing process that much better, or to make the links to your social media, that much more, shall we say, intuitive and easy, and things like that. So,
yeah,
awesome.
I'd agree with that.
That's awesome. Atticus is definitely one of the platforms that I think is very underrated, so to speak. Now, can you use Publisher Rocket? Can you use that when you're looking at your keywords to find words that you can use in your blurb writing?
Yes. So I have an article on keywords in your book description on Kindlepreneur, where I literally go through that. Here's a couple of things. Number one is that there are a lot of people who think that Amazon doesn't look at the words in your book description and use that to kind of figure out where you should show up on Amazon. And in that article, I actually prove that that's not true, that Amazon does look at the words in your book description. And just kind of for education for everybody, the reason why people think Amazon doesn't do it is because somebody will copy a sentence and paste it into Amazon. So a sentence in some book description, paste it into Amazon search bar. And then Amazon comes back and is like, yeah, no, there's no book there. And they're like, see, they're clearly, Amazon like doesn't look at your book description. Or they'll find this, they'll put in some weird code like, X24789 or something like that. They'll copy that and then they'll put that in the book description or the search bar. And again, it doesn't find the book. But here's the thing, Amazon doesn't work that way with book descriptions. People do not type in the search bar a full sentence, okay? We do not say, I am looking for a red shirt with blue buttons that, and a collar that is green. What we type in is button up shirt or blue button collar green, like just parts or phrases. And so Amazon search engine has learned to look for the kind of words that would fit this type of product. And the same thing goes with your book description. If you have submitted a book to Amazon Amazon looks at the keywords that you submit to them. They're like, oh, okay, well, clearly this is a science fiction, alien invasion kind of book. Got it. All right. We know this. Their categories say it, their keywords say it. But then they start looking through your book description to help find science fiction, alien invasion type words that helps to reassure it that your book is about that kind of thing. And if there are other areas that maybe you didn't put in your keywords, that they can put it there. So to answer that question, first off, is Amazon definitely looks at the type of words that you use and specific words. Okay. They don't use sentences then, and if they don't recognize a word, they don't use it. But the other thing, and this is the most important part, because it's not about gaming the system, it's about connecting with your readers. Okay. I love it that when I do the research for keywords, I love to use those phrases, not just as my 7 Kindle keywords, but I also use even the ones I don't put in there. I will use it to help, shall we say, beef up my my book description or add more awesomeness to my title or subtitle. Like, here's an example. Let's stick with the science fiction alien invasion. You know, if I were to say that there's an alien race out in space that is attacking the world, and the world is losing. All right. I rarely used any science fiction-y terms. Now let's go a little bit more and add science fiction-y terms. And I know that everybody's cringing over my abuse of that word, but to just kind of illustrate the point, now it's saying the intergalactic battle of the Netheran aliens has finally come to the front door of Earth, where the last bastion of humanity stands before them in the final frontier. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm saying the same thing, but I'm adding these phrases that truly, shall we say, fit the mentality of a science fiction alien invasion reader, right? And so it's not just about convincing Amazon that they should put me for intergalactic or battlefront or, you know, bastions and those kind of words. It's also to really connect with your reader, because the reader goes to Amazon, types in something, and they're looking for a book that fits what they want. They're not just randomly saying, oh, okay, I'm going to put in romance and, hey, look at that science fiction book. That's cool. They want to know that that's actually the kind of book they want. They want to know that the science fiction alien invasion isn't actually a rom-com, okay? Or that it is kind of like the books they enjoy. And if they see these phrases that fit and feel, you know, they're going to be more likely to buy. So to kind of condense that long answer, and I apologize for that, but I think it's a really important question. I love that question. Is there are the words you use in the book description absolutely helps Amazon to understand your book more and to show it more. They look at those things. But even more importantly is that's your opportunity to truly use your genre or your, you know, your nonfiction terms that connect with the reader, and that equals higher conversion rates and more sales.
Okay, so and I'm speaking from a situation that I saw last year. So if you're using a particular phrase or something that is specific to a specific genre, but it's showing up in another genre, how can you use keywords differentiate to give more information without actually spelling it out and oversimplifying it?
So just to make sure I understand the question, how do you make sure that the keyword, it doesn't put you in an area where you shouldn't be?
Exactly.
Okay. So the way that Amazon's supposed to work is that Amazon wants to show your book to the right customer. Okay. So if, say, for example, I type in, we'll say that I type in romance, right? And Amazon shows me nothing but horror books. I'm not going to come back to Amazon if that keeps happening, right? And on top of that too, Amazon's not making a sale. So what Amazon wants to do is they want to show the right book to me, not just because I want to be happy, but because they're only going to make money if they show me the right book. So what ends up happening is that Amazon will choose to show a book for a keyword phrase, and they're going to give it a chance to see if it should be there. Now, if shoppers keep typing in that keyword phrase and they are not clicking on or engaging with that book will fall away from that keyword phrase. It's because it's clearly not a good fit. Another thing too is that, say, for example, that book shows up for that keyword phrase. All right. But people maybe are clicking on it, but they're not clicking on it as well as the book that was there previously. Right. Amazon will then start to switch things around because they're using conversions in order to figure out which book to put in there. Now, so that is what is supposed to happen. Okay. And if it's not happening, then it behooves Amazon to figure that out, because that will make them a lot of money. But that being said, though, one thing that might have affected you, though, is that Amazon, if you're logged into your own account and you keep typing in that keyword and you keep engaging with your book, then Amazon will actually start to show you your book more often than not, because they keep seeing that it's a good fit for you. See what I'm saying? Yeah. So when I do my research on Amazon, and Rocket operates this way as well, is that I use an incognito mode, which basically it doesn't allow Amazon to think I'm logged in with an account. So it doesn't use my previous search history. It doesn't use my purchase history or even my engagement with my own books. And it doesn't allow my location to affect what they show. And so that's the best way to approach that, so that you see what Amazon sees instead of what Amazon thinks you want to see.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions here as well. Paula was asking if the hashtags are also going to be the hashtag app that you were mentioning, is that going to be added to Rocket at some point, or is that going to just remain separate?
No, that'll just remain separate, because what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to take the hashtag generator, and I'm going to, like I said, we're going to start with the website because I just want to see if it's helpful. And if people are absolutely loving it, it's very helpful, then what I'm going to try to do is create a free app that you can download on your phone, because like I said, most people are using Facebook app or the Instagram app or TikTok app. They're not really doing it from their desktop. And so that way you can go into the app, click, copy, and then paste it right into your Twitter app. I think that'll be the best use of it, to make it more effective and efficient for authors when they want to send off that tweet. Whereas with Rocket, on the other hand, I feel like, so you'd have to open up Rocket, then click on the hashtag generator, and then start using it. Otherwise, you could just open up a browser at that point and use it right there. I think it will just kind of add more confusion to the program. I don't think it's a good fit, but if that's something that we have a lot of requests for, then hey, we can handle it. We can add it.
Awesome. So Carolyn's got a really good question. Well, she's actually got two. So how often should we change out keyword phrases when we release? And does this also work the same for Kindle Vella?
So with regards to keyword phrases, there is an article I have that is called Changing Kindle Keywords. Okay. And I think that will be the best thing to go to. I can try to pull it up while we're here and put it in there. Let me just how to change your Kindle keywords and why you should. There you go. But I knew Google would bring it up immediately if I just put in that phrase. Here, I'll put it in the search. That kind of explains the entire process. First and foremost is I do not recommend changing all your keywords at once, because you might have one keyword phrase or one keyword box that's really driving a lot for you. And the moment you get rid of it is the moment you lose momentum. So instead, I recommend changing 2 boxes at a time and then seeing how that helps. And if your sales drop, then put back the original 2 and try a different 2. It's sort of like a very, I don't know, for lack of a better word, scientific process to testing to see which ones. But it also talks about breakdowns on times. So I think that article is the best to answer that. With regards to, does this also work for Kindle Vella? The answer is, I don't really think so. I'll be honest with that. Kindle Vella is too new of a system for me to be able to say with any certainty whether or not our information on Rocket is applicable to Vella. I could guess and think that phrases might fit with Vella, but Vella has their own tag system. So to be 100% honest, I don't know. I think it might, but I think there could be a better way for us to help. If Vela takes off, I may try to invest in figuring out their tag system. So there may be a Vela feature, but we'll see. I'm guessing at that point.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
Awesome. Yeah, because I know that there's, I have a lot of author friends who are in Vela at the moment, and that's definitely something that's come up a couple of times. So what about, can you kind of clarify for everybody a little bit more on Kindle, on the using the categories? How do we go about using categories when it comes to Rocket? You know, I just did a search for categories myself for a book that I'm working on, and the number of categories that come up, it was like, wow, this is kind of confusing. So do we have a breakdown of what the best practice is to go through that?
Yeah, so I would recommend, I've got an article on how to choose your Kindle categories. It's also on the tutorial page, and that will go through the process. But a quick and dirty on that is, for those who don't know, when you go to publish your book on Amazon, they will say to select your 2 categories. Truth be told is those are not categories. They're actually called BISACs, and it's like a standard categorization code. There are about 4,800 BISACs in the system, but there are over 11,000 Amazon categories. Okay. And so what most authors do is they'll select one of those BISACs, which is, again, 1 out of 4,800. And if you don't do anything after you publish, okay, then you are definitely going to be put in by far some of the most competitive categories there are, because let's face it, those are the same categories everybody else chooses from.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know this piece of information, that extra 6,000 plus categories are the ones that nobody else really applies for. Some people can get naturally put in. Sometimes Amazon will naturally just add you to categories. It's sort of rare, but it can happen. And so my recommendation is that when you go to publish your book, choose 2 of those BISACs. And then after you hit publish, because you have to choose 2, then Amazon has this form that you can fill out to add more categories or to change out, delete, whatever it be. And that's also on our tutorial page and on that article. So now that we understand that, the key thing is that we want to start looking for categories that A, fit our book, and B, give us the best chance for bestseller tag. A bestseller tag, you know, pridefully speaking, is great. That's cool. But from a marketing standpoint, a bestseller tag helps with sales for 2 reasons. Number one is that if you hit a bestseller list, your book is put on that list, which means more people can find you. There are a significant number of categories where people will go to shop for their next book. So being on that hot and new and best of list gets you in front of more voracious fans. And that's more so for fantasy, not so much for nonfiction. There aren't many people saying, oh man, I need the latest in quantum physics, you know? But you know, when it comes to like lit RPG or, you know, science fiction, military sci-fi, I clearly go to that category to look for my next read. So it really helps to find those and to be a part of them and to actually be listed. The second thing that's really important from a category 2 is being the bestseller, because you then have this giant tag that makes your book stick out. So if I do a keyword search, say, for example, I type in sci-fi military adventure, and your book is like number 6, but because it's a bestseller in its category, that little bestseller tag will stick next to your book, which means your book out of the 12 that show up sticks out the most. So with that said, the 2 things I care about most is getting into the top 100 for important categories and the highest chance of continuously having a bestseller tag. So what I do is I start by looking at the main categories on Amazon. And by the way, Rocket has all 11,000 of those categories listed. Amazon doesn't have that listed anywhere. You can click around to try to discover them, but it's not listed anywhere else. But on Rocket, you can go through and you can start with main categories and look. You could also, if you start to see a word or phrase that you think is important, you can just go to the search bar at the top and start typing it in. And exactly what you type in, if any category has that exact phrase, it'll list it. So you could start by doing alien and seeing how many categories, subcategories, subcategories have the word alien in them. You might find nonfiction, but you may find a lot of fiction. This is a quick way to be able to discover where there are hidden, shall we say, categories. Science fiction military is actually in 4 main categories. It's in the fantasy and science fiction main category,
Mhm.
but it's also in literary fiction. It's in young adult, and crazy enough, it's in nonfiction. And so it's interesting where you can discover great categories that fit your book that are clearly in places that most people would never discover. Okay. So that's one general area that I think is really important for authors. Another thing too is that if you're doing the competition analyzer, okay, so you're searching and you're looking for books that show up for that keyword phrase. Let's say you type in science fiction, military, adventure, and Rocket will list all the books that would show up for that keyword. But if you click the unleash the categories button, that will then list off every category that all those books are a part of. And you can start to look to find ones that way as well. It will tell you how many books you would need to sell in order to be the new #1 bestseller. And so that makes finding categories that others may have discovered or helps give you ideas of where to look. And I think that's a really good opportunity too.
Okay, so there's been some conversation about being in as many categories as possible. Um, you know, use all 10 because Amazon allows you to use up to 10. Is that a good strategy to go into, especially if you've got a category that has very few competitors in it?
Yeah, I definitely think so. The only time that it will hurt you is if you're choosing categories that really don't fit. Like, for example, the science fiction military, which I still think is hilarious. That I've seen a lot of like science fiction show up in nonfiction, like the word fiction's in it for Pete's sake. But when you choose that nonfiction, you're telling Amazon you're nonfiction. That could hurt you, right? Because you're a fiction book. So you're going to confuse them in choosing a nonfiction. And that kind of goes like, for example, does it stop people? No. You might not have seen it, but I think about a year and a half ago, Harry Potter got in trouble because they were listing Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in the nonfiction category of orphan children. What?
Okay.
Like, you're Harry Potter. You don't need to be doing that. That's terrible. But they were clearly #1 forever for orphan children nonfiction. Needless to say, it's crazy. But did it hurt them? No. Apparently they thought it was good. But my point though is to us, let's try not to confuse Amazon. Definitely don't choose something that doesn't fit your book. Otherwise you're giving Amazon really good details and you're giving your book more chance to show up. And there is no hard, fast rule anywhere that says a max of 10. I just kind of popularized that number because from my experience, if you ask for up to 10 categories, normally the Amazon humans have never bucked it. But you ask beyond 10 and they might actually start to say no. They don't have anywhere written to the max number of categories. So I think it's kind of a rule of thumb, 10 or less is probably a good idea. More than that, you're going to start to run into some humans saying no.
Okay. So if you find a book of yours that is in the wrong category, what would be the step to pulling it? Like, for example, let's say Amazon, you're writing sci-fi, military, adventure, and all of a sudden it's in sweet romance, small town, second chance romance category, for example. How do you go about working around that to get that removed?
The same form that you fill out to add categories, it also has in there that's the form you use to get them to remove categories. So just tell them, hey, this is my book, ASIN number this. It's a part of this category. I'd like you to remove that category. And within 24 hours, they should do it.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Look at a split.
Awesome. That's nice. Sometimes it works that quick. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend checking. So if you have Rocket, put your book in there and click the unleash the categories or see categories so you can see what categories Amazon has you a part of. Because do note that when you're on your Amazon sales page, they'll only show you 3 there. You may be a part of 10, but they'll only show 3. Using Rocket, you can discover which ones you're actually a part of. So after 24 hours, put your book through Rocket and verify that they did remove the one you requested. And if they didn't, recontact them and say, hey, I requested this, still haven't seen the change. Can you please remove this? And just kind of keep at them until they do it. I have heard of a couple of cases where they asked for categories or they asked for categories removed and they went back to check and it was never added. They said they did, but it wasn't. So.
For those of who are present that are international authors, I do know that there are certain categories, certain BISACs that are don't work. So, for example, you know, if you find a category that really works in say Amazon.com, and you want to apply that to say Amazon.ca, but there is no category. Is there a way to actually push through that to get the category that you want outside of Amazon.com, or are you just limited to what they have?
You are limited to what they have in that country. So for example, America has 11,000 categories, or over 11,000 Amazon book categories and ebook categories. The UK has 7,000. So there's clearly 4,000 difference. Germany has 4,700. And you get into the smaller countries, and it's going to be less. So, but my recommendation, especially to US authors or so, is that I would not worry about the international categories unless you look at your KDP and you see that you're actually selling in that country. Then I would go in and start taking the work to try to figure it out. So we do have, Rocket has German and the UK market on it and has all the categories for those two. But like I said, I would not recommend to authors spending the time trying to find the German category that fits what they're looking for, unless they see those sales. Otherwise, that's just kind of I would say a waste of time at that point. The category won't bring you out of obscurity on Germany and start making sales. But what it will do is help you if you're already making sales. It's kind of the best way to put it. So.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Did we have any more questions from our audience? I have a couple other questions, but I want to kind of give everybody else a chance to.
Look, I don't want to change the direction too much, Dave, but are you the company behind Atticus?
Yes, sir, I am. Yep.
Okay. The reason I ask is I've been using Scrivener for maybe 8 years, and I'm probably one of the top 10 or 15 power users of Scrivener. I've helped the development team in that. But when I published my first book, it was a nonfiction book about 7 years ago. I exported it to RTF, and then I used InDesign. But now I'm actually writing nonfiction. And even though the Scrivener 3 compiler is very, very strong, but I was still looking at something like maybe Vellum or Atticus and that to do the formatting for me. But I've actually been able to make a great deal of, I guess my question is, as a very powerful Scrivener user, is there a reason to consider Atticus in terms of formatting, or, you know,
yeah.
because it seems to be a combination of Vellum and Scrivener, if you will.
Yeah,
which
well,
is a good way to market it.
Let me start by kind of saying that so I used to work for Apple a long time ago. And when Scrivener first came out, which is back in 2007, I started using them then.
Right.
So I could say I'm a power user too. That being said, though, is that there's a couple of things that, and take everything I have to say with a grain of salt, because, you know, I'm biased per se, but this is what really drove me to build the software. What I love about Scrivener is, I mean, I've used it for years and I like how to organize my content. What I don't like about Scrivener is that I've used it for years, and I even paid $200 once for a course on how to use Scrivener, and I still don't remember how to do a lot of the stuff. There are a lot of features that I have forgotten and therefore can't use because I just don't know where it's located. My belief on how they designed Scrivener was that they really packed a lot of punch into it and a lot of things, but they made it not very intuitive. And there's two things I always tell my programming team. I call it click, click, and brain calories. I know it sounds really dumb, but I've never thought of a better term for it. A click, click means is that if there's a feature that's actually really useful, I better be able to get to it before 2 clicks. Like, otherwise that's a waste. If I have to click twice, 3 times, 4 times just to find something, then we've designed it poorly. The second thing is what I call brain calories. If I have to think just a little extra to figure out where something is, then I'm expending too many brain calories. An example of this is my team came back and they said, hey, we should use all these these icons instead of the words so that we make it cleaner and better looking. And I was like, cool. All right. I get the gear. That usually means, you know, profile or, you know, so that I get that. But if gear is profile and settings, then what's the little human looking one? Oh, well, that's character cards. I was like, ah, okay. I get that. But I had to think about it. Now you say it, it makes sense, but I had to think about it. I had to burn some brain calories, if you will. That's what I like to call it. I was like, so that doesn't help me. And they're like, let's figure out a way to do that. Like, I get the sizing, but let's make it. So we made it that when you hover over it, it will have the words that explains it. That was a way for us to kind of reduce brain calories, if you will. And so, like I said, you know, Joe Nicoletti sells a course called Learn Scrivener Fast. It's $200. And the guy makes over $1 million a year from the course. So I don't think Scrivener was very intuitive in that respect. And so that's always been my thing is I think they just put too much into it and they hide a lot of the features. The second thing is that for formatting books from Scrivener, you can format a book on Scrivener. The problem is like you said, like you were talking about with that compiler, it's kind of a struggle. There's even a full-on course that's out there on how to learn how to format with Scrivener.
Sure.
And what I don't like about it is I can't see what my book's going to look like. So I'll make all these decisions and then I will click compile. And then it's like, surprise, you made this mistake over here. So then I got to go back into Scrivener and I got to do some things. And I hope this time it works and I hit compile. And that's really caused a lot of problems. Plus, it will compile a basic book, but it will not design a beautiful book, right? And that's where a program like Vellum steps in. And so we talked about Scrivener now. Now let's look at Vellum. And Vellum, these guys did an amazing job building a very intuitive, low brain calorie, you know, burner, not too many clicks in there and everything like that. But more importantly, you have the ability to see your book and what it's going to look like on all the different layouts, whether that's Kindle or whether that's, you know, on a Fire, you know, Kindle Fire or an iPad, or how it's going to physically look with different trims. That is amazing. The problem with Vellum is that it only works for Mac. So all PC users, you either have to go get a Mac or you have to do a Mac in cloud and pay a subscription base in order to use the software. Another thing too, and just as a heads up on nonfiction, other nonfiction writers can add to this, Vellum doesn't play well with nonfiction. Like they just kind of made it for fiction. And so they don't have the footnotes. They don't have call out boxes. They don't do subheadings, you know, H2, H3, so that you can have different set points. And they've flat out said that they're just not going to do that. This was where it was an opportunity for us in saying, well, geesh, if I could create Vellum, but make it work on all computers, and here's all these features that I would like to do. And as a nonfiction writer, I'd really like those nonfiction capabilities, and make it $100 cheaper than them. And we start dipping into what Scrivener can do, so you don't have to move from program to program. And that's honestly like how the idea of Atticus came about, is that there clearly were things that I thought Scrivener's done well, but there's things they didn't do well. And there's things that Vellum did well, but there's a lot of things they didn't do well either. And we wanted to bridge that gap and make Atticus into something where you can write and you can format and you have the kind of the best of those two worlds come together. Ultimately, I want to create collaboration capability. We've built the engine under the program. We're going to be working on the design component here very soon, but one day, absolutely, I will be able to describe Atticus by saying, if Scrivener, Google Docs, and Vellum got together and had a baby, its name would be Atticus. That's the goal in a nutshell.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I understand your points.
So is it, did you have another question, a follow-up question there, Steve, or?
No.
Okay. So let's talk updates. Now, I know Publisher Rocket updates frequently, Atticus updates frequently. Is this something that is, you know, included in your purchase price? I know that there are some subscription-based programs out there where you have to actually buy the subscription every year and you pay X amount of dollars for the updates. Is that going to be coming into play anytime soon for Publisher Rocket or Atticus, or is it just going to remain, you buy it once and you're done?
So for Rocket, anybody who has bought it will always get my updates absolutely free. new features, you name it, absolutely free. We are coming out with that historical category data so that you can actually see trends in all 11,000 books. And that's a huge server cost. When we come out with that, I will make all future sales be an annual subscription, just so we can make that be something where we can continue to build on, right?
Yeah.
But anybody who bought it before that moment, I'm never charging you again. Like, you're good, like, you got in. And truth is, I personally hate subscription. So I really try not to ever make anything subscription based, because as an author, I don't like to sort of build my castle on sand, like something where I got to keep paying in order to keep using it. With that said, on Rocket, I'm like, man, I really want to like do these things to make it even better. So we may move to the subscription base once we go to categories. But again, to be clear, anybody who bought it before that moment, you get everything for free, every free upgrade. With regards to Atticus, it's the same way. You buy it, and every new feature I've been talking about, every upgrade, all of that, that will be free upgrades for everybody. Because I don't want to start writing my book on something that I got to keep paying in order to benefit from, or the fear that it's going to break and all my writing is a part of it. Like, that would suck. I think there might be something that we'll do as an add-on at some point, just to be open and honest. We've talked about it. We're trying to create a very extensive way to allow people to do version control, so that you can, like, say, snapshot a book and then revert. But I'm about 95% sure that that's just going to be free and just add it on, because I think my programmers found a way to be able to do that without it really costing a lot on the servers. So, man, I made that answer more complicated than it should have been. Let me simplify it. I don't like subscriptions. These aren't subscriptions. And if you buy it as a one-time cost, you don't have to pay more money for the new features or all the work that we add to it. And anybody who's had Rocket since we first made it over 6 years ago can tell you that they've never had to pay for it again, and they've just benefited from all the new things we do.
It's definitely a program that I think every author should have, because it has saved so much time. Just looking up for categories, keywords, trying to figure all of that out. When it comes to keywords, now this is something that I know that I have personally struggled with, is the school of thought of having one word or two words in each box. What would be a better marketing strategy, to have the single word, or to have the two, in that one space, to fill up with like 5 words or whatever your character number is, that actually reflects the books?
Yeah, I'm going to put another article in here. Sorry to do this, but it's so
good.
We actually did an experiment to answer that exact question. And here, I'll give you the gist of it. But if you want to go into very, very big detail and to know that out, I wrote this article called The 7 Kindle Keywords. And we tested to see what works best. Should I fill a box with as many words as possible, or should I put the exact phrase or word that I want most? And what we found is both. There's a pro and a con to both. Amazon, if you put in, so you're allowed 50 characters in each box. And if I put in, say, 6 words that, fit somehow up to 50 characters, Amazon will use combination of those words, and you can index or show up for all those different combinations. Okay. But we also found out that when you're very particular, so say it's like, family second chance romance, right? And you really want that phrase, okay? Family second chance romance, or just second chance romance, right? Just putting that phrase and no other words, you will actually rank better than what you would have if you just stuffed. So my marketing recommendation to authors, and you can see how we conducted that experiment, is find 3 or 4 phrases that you really, really like, and put that phrase in its own box and don't stuff anything else in it. And then in the rest of the boxes, use all the other words and combine them and fill in the rest. So I think that's the best of both worlds. You'll rank better for the ones you really care about, and you'll spread out more because you've stuffed some of the other boxes.
Awesome. Okay. That makes perfect sense, and it's actually it's really good advice. It's definitely something that I learned the hard way. I'm just going through the chat here, seeing if there's any other questions.
Oh, and one other thing too is don't put commas, don't put brackets, anything like that. That and Amazon even tries to tell people, please don't do that. When you put commas, you actually force it not to be able to combine. It's like a programming language that messes them up. So don't use commas in between your words. Just put the words like it's like Dragon War Fantasy Epic Battle Epic War, Weavern, like just don't put those commas in there. That'll hurt.
Okay. So leave all of the punctuation out.
No punctuation. Yep.
Awesome. So can you tell us, for those that don't have Rocket, how to, where to go to get it, what it costs, all the good details?
Yeah. So Publisher Rocket is a one-time cost of $97, and you can find it at publisherrocket.com. And Atticus is $147, and that's for unlimited books and ebooks. And you can find that at atticus.io, which, by the way, a little fun fact, 2 fun facts, actually. So the reason why I named it Atticus and why we chose that dog is, well, 2 reasons. One, I think the dog is awesome, but I'm trying to convince my wife to let me get a Boston Terrier. And I was like, well, honey, it can be a business expense now. See, so I'm really hoping that we get a Boston Terrier, maybe one of these days. But the other thing, though, is that everybody thinks Atticus, which, by the way, absolutely a phenomenal literary character in American, literature, Atticus Finch. But truth be told is that we actually dug into history, and one of the biggest formatting and publishers was Titus Atticus. And he actually was the one that saved all of Cicero's works. He also saved Socrates and all that. And he created a whole bunch of this. He basically created this printing press. And what's funny is that as we did all of this research on the name Atticus, it was like every Roman that had the name Atticus was either a poet, a philosopher, or a publisher. I was like, wow. And then we were looking in modern day, and there's this famous poet now called Atticus, which nobody knows who he is, but he goes by the name of Atticus. And I'm like, all right, if there wasn't a better word for what we're going to be doing, like, that's it. So anyways, that's why we actually called it Atticus, and we have the dog.
So you have a YouTube channel as well. And I'm a subscriber, I'll be honest. I rewatch your videos regularly. Share the link for that, because I think that's a really good resource for everybody in the group.
I can do that. Yeah, let me find that. Caught me unprepared for that one. Let's see here. I gotta look for myself here. Where's that? Okay. There it is. Here you go. Oh, you can hear me playing. There it is. Woo.
Awesome. Excellent. Does anyone have any final thoughts, final questions? Dave?
No, I guess I can leave with my favorite recommendation authors is, and we kind of hit upon it when we were talking about social media, but my recommendation authors is that when it comes to book marketing, there's like 50 different things you can always do. There's hundreds of different book marketing tactics. And what I tell authors is don't try to do everything. Don't dabble in lots of things. Instead, choose a couple of core things, maybe 4 or 5 marketing tactics, and then really dig into those and try to master them. Okay. And I know mastery sounds crazy, but if you're in this as a career, master them. The people who do that see much better results and feel more fulfilled than the ones that dabble in 20 or 30 things and really get nothing done. So really choose a couple of things that you want to really stick to and stick to them, and you will see much better results for what you do. Otherwise, you're just going to feel a lot of burnout.
Yes, burnout is very, very real.
It is very real. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for taking the time out to chat with us and share everything that you have. It's been awesome. I do hope that you will come back another time, because I'm sure that there will be tons more questions that come up. And thanks so much for putting together Publisher Rocket and Atticus. Both of them are awesome programs, and I'm so glad that I've got Publisher Rocket. I'm working on getting Atticus, but thanks again so much for coming in, and I hope you come back soon and do another presentation with us.
Excellent. And thank you for having me, guys.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thanks again. All right, everybody. I am sadly at my day job, so instead of our regular 2-hour program, it is only going to be an hour, and I am going to sign off. I will put this up onto the YouTube channel and the link into the group for everyone. So if there's things that you maybe feel like you want to go back and cover, it will be available, and I will try and get that up tonight. I've just got to get it off my phone and into the YouTube channel. So if there's no other questions, have a great day, everybody. Thank you so very much. Thank you again, Dave, for taking the time to join us. And we will talk to everybody next week at the next roundtable. Have a great one.